Welcome back to the Sandy Trail. We are in the final sixth part of episode 5 of season 2 review of Sanditon. We are in the last 5 minutes of the episode, and I really want to have this video to focus on one of the most important scenes ever between Charlotte and Mr. Heybourne, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
Miss Leonora has been impossible. Up and down from her bed all evening. Miss Hayward, I was not expecting you.
Did you dance, Augusta? Miss Hayward.
Before the big moment, we see Charlotte arriving back to the house. Leonora, I'm pretty sure she's surprised to see Charlotte as well as Mrs. Whitley. It's late at night, it's after the ball. What is Charlotte doing here? Augusta and Leonora, they exchanged a hug, and it was very sweet to see that, because I feel like since the beginning of season 2, Augusta and Leonora don't really have a close relationship, and it's just so sweet that Leonora hugged Augusta, and hopefully they maintain a close sisterly type of relationship as life goes on. Mr. Heybourne and Charlotte look at each other once again. Every time they look at each other, like more and more, it's just like building up the momentum of how they like each other. Like they really like each other in a romantic way. Like they're falling for each other and they cannot stop looking at each other. It's so obvious by now, and it's just confirmed every time they look at each other. It's that look of love that they're falling for each other.
Come, girls. Let us leave your father and Miss Hayward in peace.
I'll tell you everything tomorrow.
Mr. Heybourne and Mrs. Whitley exchanged a glance. When Mrs. Whitley told the girls to leave the room, she looked at Mr. Heybourne, and it was like a signal to him, like, hey, this is your chance, this is your opportunity to be alone with Charlotte and tell her what really happened between him and Lennox in the past and how they got involved with each other over the late wife of Mr. Heybourne. So Mr. Whitley read the room, like she didn't pick up the vibes, and she knew that Mr. Heybourne brought Charlotte back to the house to talk about something. Mr. Whitley gave one last look to Mr. Heybourne and Charlotte. I'm not sure if you saw that, but she knows what's up. She can read the room, like she can read what's going on, and it was really nice that she helped Mr. Heybourne in this scene, like, hey, let me take his away and you can have a private moment with Charlotte. Now, it's only the two of them left in the room, and they look at each other again. It's very intimate. It's just that physical, mental attraction at the same time between Charlotte and Mr. Heybourne. And I think at the same time of like looking at her, Mr. Heybourne think at the same time like, okay, like I'm about to tell Charlotte what really happened. And it's something that's very vulnerable for him to talk about. It's not something easy for him to just tell anyone. And when he does tell Charlotte what really happened in the past, it will show to her that he trusts her. It's a very touchy topic to talk about, and Charlotte needs to know. It's been a long time waiting, and I think this is a great time for him to tell Charlotte what really happened in the past.
Hysteria, Aunt. What if she begins to rave? We may not be able to provide care to her best advantage.
We need not consider that now.
These affairs only go one way.
Well, where would she go?
I like the fact that Lady Denham is like postponing in a good way. Like she really doesn't want Esther to go to a mental hospital or to be moved out of the house away from family. Like she really cares for her niece, and she does worry for her, but she's thinking like, isn't it better if we take care of her at home right here in Sanditon instead of putting her away at a different place where she really doesn't know anyone, and it's gonna make it worse on her mental situation, and it's gonna make her feel unloved and abandoned, and she doesn't even have her husband, Lord Babington, back home yet in Sanditon. Like, she's like technically alone. Like, she only has her aunt that really care for her at this moment. Edward is trying to pressure his aunt to take his half-sister away and to just abandon her and get her out of the family picture, basically. Edward is close to winning, like he's like almost there, but Esther is still around, so Edward is trying every last thing that he can to get Esther out of the family picture and to get her name off the will.
Where is George? Do you have him?
After the birth of baby George, I think that's the baby name, Clara didn't want to be a mom, and now she worried for her son, and she has this open, motherly nature about her, which is a good thing. I don't know if I'm like analyzing too much or reading it into it too much about Edward. I felt like when Clara like trying to tell Edward, like, she didn't say it, but when she's like, do you have the baby? Like, it's our baby missing, like, hello, like, help me out. I felt like he didn't like jump into action quick enough. He was like, what are you talking about? Like, the baby fine. Like, he didn't really like show much concern for his missing baby son. Maybe I'm reading it too much over it, but Clara, on the other hand, she worried for her son, and this is a different picture compared to like 2-3 episodes ago when Clara like didn't want to deal with her son. Like, she didn't want to hold him, she didn't want to feed him, but now she's like going crazy, like, where's my son? So it's a good improvement that Clara wants to be a mom and that she really loves her son now. We get to see that Esther has the baby. This could be a good thing or a bad thing, but with her medical condition that the doctor diagnosed over her, you know, this might be a bad thing. You know, they might think that Esther trying to steal the baby or whatnot. Again, she lost her baby daughter and she missing that motherhood opportunity, and she desperate to get pregnant again and to have a child again. So this situation can go either way. It could be a good thing or a bad thing, seeing Esther holding a baby.
Esther! What are you doing?
Don't hurt him!
I wished for some air and I heard George crying.
And you brought him back here? Why?
To bring him comfort. Edward, you're frightening him!
Edward being a little bit dramatic, like, don't touch him. So yeah, it's just turning to be a really bad situation. I didn't like how they approached this situation, like scaring Esther off with that tone and that scaredness in their voice. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like they don't trust her. So she already feeling like betrayed and cut off from the family, if that makes sense. So Esther like looking at them like, why are you guys freaking out? Like, I'm just holding the baby, like trying to calm him down.
Please do not harm him. Return him to his mother.
I would never harm him. I'm comforting him.
Esther, give him to his mother. Now, please.
Okay, so she getting a little bit complicated. She's showing that symptom of just being a crazy lady, but Edward is not helping the situation at all either. Like, he trying to make her look bad, like he pretending to be like a very concerned father in this situation and making Esther look like the bad guy in this situation. Clara, she really didn't jump in and say much. She just like, okay, like, I know this is not entirely Esther's fault. This is because of what Edward had been doing and drugging Esther in her drink. So Clara cannot really blame Esther. So she kind of like held back a little bit. She sees that her son is okay and that Esther is just trying to show some love and comfort to her son. So Clara's just like calming down a bit. But Edward's tone and the volume of his voice is not helping, and Lady Denham, like, she's freaking out too, so that doesn't help. So with that, Esther's like, why are you guys like, blaming on me? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. And she become more defensive against them because she doesn't see anything wrong that she's doing. So this is getting really heated, I would say. I think that helped when Clara gave that look to Esther, like, it's time to give me back my baby. That encouraging, loving look, like, hey, like, I know you didn't mean harm, but it's time to give me back my baby. Lady Denham finally say in a nice tone, like, give the baby back, please. And Esther finally gave in without any hesitation. So that part is a good thing. But Edward, he really made it worse, and that sparked up her symptoms, her defensive side against them. Clara is scared for her son's life. Like, she automatically feared her baby life. Like, I understand that. But at the same time, that look that she gave to Esther before she walked away, like, part of it is like, she feels really bad for Esther, but she knows what happened, what is happening behind the scene, and how Esther doesn't know, even Lady Denham doesn't know about the poison that Edward had been pouring into Esther's drink medicine. Clara's the only one knows besides Edward himself. So it's a very complicated situation for Clara herself. Like, she hasn't told Esther or Lady Denham what's going on, and for me, like, I would say that she should tell Lady Denham, like, now. Edward pretending to be a very loving future husband, loving daddy, like, being protective of his son and his pending wife, just like pretending to be like the good guy in all of this. But that look, like, his facial expression always gets me. Like, this actor drives me nuts. Like, he plays Edward so well. Yeah, that evil look, like, this is working, everything is working out according to my plan, I'm gonna win it all. So Edward thinks that he's gonna have all the money and that his name or his son's name will be on the will of Lady Denham. He thinks that he's gonna win all of this. We'll see if he does. The last look of Esther before the scene ended, I felt her emotion. She felt betrayed by her family. She felt alone, deserted. She doesn't have her loving husband with her. She's just all alone and no one really here for her. No love, no support showing to her. She feels unloved right now in this moment, and I feel really, really bad. And, it's tough, like, we know at the audience what's really going on, and she doesn't know it just yet. But when she does find out, she's gonna attack back to Edward, that's for sure.
Lucy and I married young. I had not long inherited this house. She wanted to stay in London, at the heart of society, and I did not. So I came back here.
A good introduction, nice and easy. This is tough for him to talk about and to relieve the memories in his head as he telling the story to Charlotte. I'm pretty sure she appreciates him telling her right now in this moment. she felt like anxious and a bit nervous. He kept looking down, up and down as he told the story to Charlotte. This is not an easy subject to talk about with anyone.
She stayed for a final season.
That's where she met Colonel Lennox.
Captain, as he then was. I never thought what strangers she and I had become.
We get to learn a bit more about him. He seemed to be like a countryside type of man. Like he loved to live in the countryside, farm life. Like he's not really into big cities and being a public guy and doing all these social events. His late wife, she seemed to be like the life of the party, loved to go to parties and balls and socialize and hang out with other people, living that city life. Like she was definitely a city girl. So we can learn and understand that Mr. Heybourne and his late wife were different people. Like they had different perspectives in life, they had different preferences. Like she would rather live in a city, but he rather live on this property that he is living in right now, and that's his comfort place. But for Lucy, like her comfort place was in London, in the city. So it's really interesting that as she told the story, we get to understand a bit more of the type of man that he is. Captain Lennox met Lucy in London, so that's another interesting fact that is spilling in this scene. I might be analyzing too much once again, but when Charlotte when she asked him like, oh, that's where Lucy met Lennox, that's how they met, I felt like she did that so Mr. Heybourne doesn't have to say it, just to make the conversation as smooth as possible, like easy going for him. Like this is already hard for him to tell the story to Charlotte, so she put in some of the words throughout this conversation just to make him a little bit more at ease as he is telling the story. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just showed that Charlotte is interested and that she is listening and that she's paying attention and that she really wants to know, and that knowing the story, it would definitely help her decision about her employment for Mr. Heybourne, with Mr. Heybourne, and the fate of her future. If she does have feeling for Mr. Heybourne, and whatever happens in the story that he tells her, it's gonna direct her to that final choice if she wants to be with Mr. Heybourne or not.
She wrote, delaying her return, pleading illness. Months went by without a word. At last, my curiosity conquered my pride. I went to London.
No one is perfect. No man is perfect. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. I did like how Mr. Heybourne was humble. He revealed to Charlotte that he had pride in himself, and finally his curiosity conquered his pride, and he finally went to London. But it just shows how it was in the early days of his marriage with Lucy. They got married, like honeymoon bliss, and they got this house in Sanditon, and it's kind of like they got married and then they became single again, like living their own separate life. The early days of your marriage, I would say, I never got married, like not yet, but like to me, like I would assume that the early days of your marriage are important, right? Like you get to know each other, like you figure out your living situation and how to move on as a couple, and the job, the house that you live in. Like you don't want to be separated from your husband, especially in the honeymoon phase and in the early days of your marriage. So it's not normal hearing the story and just like realizing like, wait, Lucy and Mr. Heybourne, like they were not married like their marriage wasn't strong. Like, they were not together all the time. They were living separate lives in different cities, different towns, and that's not normal. Like, you should be with your wife, you should be with your husband, like, almost every day, like, you know, like, once in a while, like, you know, you get separated if one of them go on a trip, but you should be constantly in each other's life every day as a married couple. So he wasn't very proactive. He didn't jump, you know, to go to London sooner rather than later. He just like, whatever, like, you live in London, you love it there, you have friends there, you enjoy the nightlife and the social event, like, you do you, I do me in Sanditon and this house. Like, he just like didn't hear enough for his wife. He wasn't very nurturing toward her, and I think those early days of marriage are very critical and very crucial, and it sets the rest of their lives, you know. So to me, it's like a bad start to the marriage, and it led to that falling apart moment.
Only to find she was with child.
His child.
So he said, I went to London, and he just had like a few seconds of just silent pause. And the next word he said that Lucy got pregnant. But before he said Lucy got pregnant, you can feel the emotion that he's feeling. Like, he blaming himself all over again. And again, like, this is very hard to talk about, for him to talk about with anyone. And so it's just like reliving the memories and replaying the memories of it in his mind at the same time. It's very emotional. It got very emotional when he told Charlotte that Lucy got pregnant, and the child father is Lennox, not him. And Charlotte, like, oh my goodness, like, this is crazier than what Lennox told Charlotte. Like, Lennox didn't really, like, tell much, but now Mr. Heybourne is telling, like, the deep details of what really happened between him, Lennox, and Lucy.
He'd abandoned her. And she was too scared and ashamed to face me.
In the moment that Charlotte finds out that, you know, Lennox has a child with Lucy, him appearing over to the door and ding, 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 like, whose kid that, you know, is, you know, that Lucy and Lennox kid? It's Leonora. And bombshell. Poor Leonora, like, this is not how you want to find out who's your real dad is. And that dad is not Mr. Heybourne, it's actually Hannah Lennox. I feel bad for her at the same time. Lennox did abandon Lucy. That's so typical of Lennox, so he's a bad guy. I mean, this whole story confirms that Hannah Lennox is a liar and he's a bad man.
I showed her no pity, no compassion.
You better blame.
The words I spoke torment me to this day.
He blaming himself all over again, but it shows that he's been hearing those guilt, those blames on himself for many years. I think Leonora is 9 years old, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, like, he's been holding those guilt for so many years now, and it's painful for him to carry those burdens and just having it bottled up inside of him. He never forgave himself for what he did, and Charlotte trying to be supportive and telling him, like, don't put this on you, it wasn't your fault 100%. Yeah, it's a tough situation. What a very emotional scene, especially coming from Mr. Heybourne. We never see this side of him until now. Like, he always been like the tough boss to Charlotte, and now we see the sensitive side of him.
She became a ghost of her former self. And not long after the child was born, she...
Go on.
When Charlotte said go on, it's like encouraging him to finish the story, like you're almost there, like you almost tell her everything, like you almost to the end, like she doesn't want him to give up or get too scared to talk about this, so she encouraging him to finish the story. So many things are revealed in this scene, and it just changed the entire perspective of the love triangle situation. Leonard is someone that you cannot trust at all, and Mr. Heybourne, he's not a bad guy. Like, he's not that bad guy that everyone thinks he is. That bad reputation that he has in public, like, that doesn't prove who he really is as a person. He had this sensitive side. He went through a lot with his late wife. No one knows the full story. Now Charlotte is getting to know the full story of what happened, and I'm pretty sure this will confirm her impression of him. This will change her perspective of him, and this will convince her to be more compassionate toward him, and to give him compassion in the space to be himself. Like, she cannot blame him anymore for who he is. He's not a bad guy. He's not a mean guy. He just went through a lot, and he's been hiding that for so long from outside of the house. Like, he's been hiding this secret, this story from the public, and he really doesn't tell anyone except for Mr. Whitley and now Charlotte.
Lucy knew she was not strong. When she walked out into the rain that night, she must have known.
That is why it pains you to be in Leo's company.
Even though it wasn't his child, he got stuck with the child. Like, no one else, I mean, Leonard didn't want to take care of Leonora, so he got stuck with Leonora. He cared enough for Leonora to stay in his house and to grow up in the house, even though Leonora is not Mr. Heybourne's child. So it just showed that Mr. Heybourne had that loving side of him, even though we see this relationship between Leonora and Mr. Heybourne, like, not the greatest father-daughter relationship. He still cared enough for her to be brought up in this house, and to have her taken care of throughout her life, instead of sending her to an orphanage, for example. Now Charlotte understands why the relationship between Leonora and Mr. Heybourne is not much loving, like, it's not close, it's not a strong relationship. Now she understands why Mr. Heybourne doesn't really spend much time with Leonora, because it's not really his daughter. He has that feeling of just, not guilt, I don't know what to say, bitterness, I guess I would say. Bitterness, like, she's not my kid, but I have to put up with her just because my wife had her. Like, my wife gave birth to this baby girl, so it's like he felt responsible to take care of Leonora. But I'm pretty sure deep down he loved Leonora as his own. It's just the past is, like, still haunting him to this day, and he's been holding it inside of him. Like, he never told Leonora the truth. Now Leonora finding out behind the door without him knowing. So it's a very complex situation that's going on here, and it's really sad at the same time. It's just something that he did not wish. Like, he wanted to have a happy, long marriage with Lucy, but it didn't work out for the both of them.
She's a living reminder.
I so wanted to tell you, but I was afraid of what you would think of me.
At the same time, Leonora reminded Mr. Holborn every single day, like, of what Lucy did to him behind his back, having sex with Lennox and being pregnant with his child. She's the constant reminder of Lucy and the constant reminder of Lennox.
You should not endure such recrimination after so long. Forgive yourself.
I cannot. I cannot.
You must. Else the past will thwart the future.
Charlotte can be very quiet when it comes to like physical touches. Like, she doesn't like touch you like easily. Like, she doesn't show PDA that easily. Like, she doesn't like, you know, show physical intimacy with a guy that she likes. So when she like grabbed his hand, like held his hand like that, like, it's a good sign, especially if they like each other that way, you know. It's a sign of comfort, assuring like she on his side, like she understand him, like she respect him, and she not hating him for what happened in his past. But also, like, holding hand like that is a sign of comfort, like in a romantic way too, if that makes sense. Again, he revealed that he was afraid to tell her, like he didn't want her to think that he's a bad guy, but he really wasn't. It's just a messy situation that he did not wish upon himself. Like, it's just something that he did not force to happen, but unfortunately, like, life happened, you know, and he got into this messy situation, and he did the best he could, and he, you know, did the best he could for that baby girl. And Leonora, she seemed to be a very wild, in a good way, entertaining, lively little girl, and I'm pretty sure he loved her as his own. But right now, Leonora is just like, oh my goodness, he's not my real dad. He doesn't love me. Like, what am I doing here? So that's another situation unfolding from this scene. But I can tell that he is relieved now, and he finally got this over with. Like, he finally said it to Charlotte. He told her the story, and I'm pretty sure he feels more relaxed now. And I'm pretty sure at the same time that Charlotte appreciates so much that he told her the whole story of what happened.
A future that I imagine could be very dear indeed.
Ooh, so she telling him to forgive himself. And that's the remaining issue with the story. Like, he really does need to forgive himself, because if you don't forgive yourself, like, you're never gonna get over with. Like, you're not gonna be happy with yourself for the rest of your life. Like, this is something serious, and it's something serious. So that's why Charlotte is mentioning to him, like, you gotta let it go and just forgive yourself, and not let it bring into your future. And he like look at her like, okay, why are you talking about the future? I think she meant in the way that move on and have a happy future with your family. Like, you deserve to be happy and to have a happy family life with Leonora and Augusta. Like, you deserve to have a happy life for the rest of your life. I think she meant it that way. But Mr. Holborn thinking like the other way, he's like, okay, are you talking about like us too? Like, are you in the future? Like, are you Charlotte will be in my future? And they give each other that look again, and she's like starting to lean into her to give her a kiss, and she's like, oh my goodness, is this really happening? Like, did I say something wrong? Like, is he thinking of like something else after I said that? So this was unexpected for Charlotte. Like, she didn't expect to hit him right now. She thought like, okay, this is just a meeting with my boss, like talking about something personal that happened in his past, nothing more. But now here comes the kiss. it was a very passionate, intimate kiss finally happened. So this is like a big moment for Charlotte and Alexander. He started to lean into her, and then she's like, okay, he wants it, I want it, and then he finally like touched her lips and he like initiated the kiss. So it's a nice balance, and it's nice when the guy want to initiate the kiss. When he gives the first sign, like he going in for a kiss. And Charlotte was cool with that. Like she didn't hesitate. She allowed the moment to happen freely, just like go with the flow, and it happened, and yeah, it happened. So good for them. Again, very passionate, and I like how he touched her cheek and kind of like a sign to come closer, and she like leaned into him, and it's very close to one another, like physically close to one another. It's very intimate. I thought it was hot at the same time, but it just shows that they are on the same page and they like each other. And after this story that he told her, it just made her feel better. Like, okay, like my gut feeling is true. Like I'm gonna go with my heart, my feelings for him. It just be with him and hit him in this moment. It just showed that she did fall for him. She is falling for him, and he is falling for her too. So it's a good sign for the both of them, compared to Leonard when he hit Charlotte earlier at the ball. Like she did not like that. So it showed that she wasn't into him like she is into Mr. Heybourne right now. So Mr. Heybourne is the winner. Like, let's be honest, like this was a love triangle. So like Mr. Heybourne won the love triangle competition. I'm not trying to say that in a bad way, but basically he was the one that she wanted to be with, and that confirmed in this scene. I'm glad that Leonora didn't see that kiss, so it's just like literally like the two of them, like they really had that moment of kissing each other with no one around or watching. But that's another situation that's gonna go into episode 6. Leonora finds out that Mr. Heybourne is not her real dad, so we'll see what happens. I'm really glad I finally get to this point. I've been really busy lately, so it's nice to wrap up this episode now and upload it right after and jump to episode 6. So keep an eye out for episode 6 review. I don't know how many parts, probably at least 5, depending on how many things that happen in episode 6. And yeah, it's a lot of stuff that happened in the season finale, episode 6. Thank you for being patient. As usual, comment down below any thoughts you have for this episode. Give a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. See you around. Bye.